Good morning. Last night, I had a direct reward for my sleeping pattern, my biphasal, bimodal sleeping pattern, which is simply sleeping in two different segments, sleeping for some hours and awakening and spending some time either reading or contemplating or just simply enjoying the stillness. And rewarded by going out onto my back balcony, back lanai. Lanai is what I grew up calling balconies. It's a Hawaiian word for balcony. And like so many things, old use patterns. If I said lanai, I was met with a quizzical look and had to start using balcony. But I was rewarded. Mine faces, my balcony faces westward. And I go out there to look if I'm up and about during my interregnum, the period before, from sleep 1 to sleep 2, and I saw the moon completely eclipsed, faint with a light orange glow. And it's been accompanied by Mars, which I understand is uniquely close to Earth. In fact, it's been between 300,000 and 400,000 years, as to my understanding. The closest it's been to Earth in that period of time. So it's quite remarkable in the night sky. And it seems to be chasing the moon from moonrise to moonset. But of course, Mars being much farther out, would it probably be the other way around? The moon is running from Mars, maybe. But the report was this really beautiful. And it was gripping. It held me there. I got a comfortable chair and sat where I could watch the moon until it went down below the mountains. I was hoping that I could see it, the eclipse, move on so that the moon would come back in her glory. But not to be so this time. But that from 1 minute didn't take away my enjoyment. I love the moon and I feel connected to the moon somehow. And I always know the cycle of the moon. I always know if it's waxing, going from new moon to full moon, or waning from full moon to new moon. I know where it is on its pattern, on its process. On its rhythm, is probably says it most succinctly. Anyway, that's what I was doing early this morning. I went back to sleep and got up and started thinking about today. And two things happen simultaneously. It happens, and then if it happens simultaneously, I pay attention to a potential relationship between these two occurrences. And most times I find that they are related. And somehow, through the miracle of reflection, even if they are at first cursory glance related, it doesn't take me long to find a relationship. In fact, that seems what I am doing most of my time these days, is seeing relationships. And can't go a session without mentioning polarities. So the polarity that came up to me was comedy and tragedy, funny and sad. Funny and sad. And this came in context with me waking up to an old memory. Having once seen a bumper sticker that said, "Question authority." And this is stuck with me for all these years because it resonated. That's what we remember, doesn't it? If something resonates with something within us, it tends to cling. It tends to become part of us, or at least part of who we think or thought we were. So this question of authority. And as a youth, it was more strident. Question authority, you know. Sorry, that was my best pirate growl. A chuckle is much more fun, though, than growling. But it was strident, as I said. I was a pretty serious youth most of the time. Didn't see the humor that was all around. So I was more on the tragic side of this questioning authority. And from what I understand about these two, this polarity, tragedy comes from the emotive side of us. Tragedy comes from feeling. And yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, I talked about the new beings that we're welcoming into their time on the pendulum, on the wheel, on the spiral, pendulum, wheel, spiral, back and forth, tick-tock. And it all becomes a spiral, doesn't it? Progression. Anyway, we're coming to the time when this emotive consciousness, this source of awareness that comes through feelings, which will become the primary methodology, the primary path. Bhakti yoga is the yoga of the future. as feelings become not fear-driven, not on the tragic side, but they become survival. They become more and more on the comedy side. As I've gotten older, thankfully, I'm on the side of comedy. I see humor in everything, beginning with myself. And this is a blessing. I don't know if this is the mellowing out of aging, or if this is just progression. Is it logical, or is it experiential? And again, these things, logic or experience. It's the old nurture, nature argument. Here we are, surprise, surprise, another duality. One just becomes the other. So we're back to this question, the tragic side of my youth, question authority with strong emotional attachment, strong negative, mostly negative emotional attachment, as if I feared that someone would tread on my independence. Don't tread on me. From the revolutionary and pre-revolutionary period of America with a snake. Don't tread on me, or I'll bite your foot with my poisonous fangs. So the inherent fear as a youth was that someone was going to tread on me. Someone was going to limit my, what I saw as personal, inherent right to be an expression of who I was, to be allowed the time and space to determine, in fact, who I was. And at some point, and I think it was a point when things really began to happen for me, took years and years and years to let go of this tragic, serious, personal investment, which was driving me to experience silence, which was driving me to silence the mind, my Raja Yoga, the discipline, the search for control. It seemed, that was my understanding at the time, to control my mind from taming to quiet, to stilling, to silence. That was the path. And somewhere, when I started laughing at myself primarily, laughing at this tragic character, just as the two masks from the Greek tradition, the smiling and the tragic and the humorous. That was funny to me. That I'd taken it so seriously that this was necessary to get where I wanted to go. Like it was some destination. How could silence be a destination? Silence is just a state, but my understanding was so limited that I thought it was a process that took rigorous, hard work. And then the smile came. The smile that, it's not a smile unless it reaches your eyes. Can you see? I can feel that it reached my eyes. That's the smile I'm talking about. And that smile is based on a ease, a comfort, a surrender, a lack of fear that allowed me to calm down, relax. There we go. I feel that still pressure in the shoulders when I even talk about my old ways. Now, that point of surrender, and like everything, when did it happen? Well, I have a pretty clear idea of when it really happened. It resulted in laughing for what seemed like days, the cosmic joke we talk about sometimes at the beginning of awareness, at the beginning of waking up. The two, tragic and comedy, are both part of that process. There is a laughter that lasted a long time, as well as tears and a crying that lasted. It seemed longer because it was, believe me, harder to cry than it was to laugh. And I think this was the beginning. So the tears were an ending of a way of conceptualizing, if you will. Tears for the errors of my way, tears on a personal level, interpersonal level of tears, crying for all those that are choosing consciously or not to remain asleep, to be replaced with an awareness that what will be, will be. Que sera, sera, as the old song of my youth went. What will be, will be. And what will be, can be seen as a mantra that just simply by verbalizing, saying it out loud, you can feel the peace inherent in the ultimate acceptance that it can't be any other way. This is where judgment disappears as well. Each of us is beautiful, is whole, is complete, exactly as they are, exactly as we find them. This acceptance is tied closely for me with my rejection of the conditional tense. Could have, should have, would have. Nonsense. More nonsensical, if you will, than the understanding of the illusory nature of Maya. It makes me laugh because the concept of how non-reality could have been, would have been, should have been probably the most dangerous of the conditional things. Should have. The nonsensical nature of that. Since all is illusory, how can we have these illusory states within the illusion? And that's the nature of life, isn't it? Within our misunderstanding. Or other misunderstandings. And if that's not funny, I don't know what is. If we can't laugh at ourselves, doesn't seem that there's any place to begin. What better beginning than to laugh at yourself? So many things change from me as tragic, and it's encapsulated in so what? So what to the outer authority? So what to what? We perceive, because that's all we have. We perceive what others, I'm going to call what we perceive others want from us. What we perceive that others expect from us. When we see what others impose on us through social customs, through parental misguidance, through parental misunderstanding, through authoritarian constructs. So rebellion is a youthful response to outside influence with kind of a so what? And when the comedic sense, when the mask with a smile starts morphing from the frowny face, from the frowny mask of the Greek tradition. And again, as with all polarities, it must be, I have to, point it out yet again, because this is something that seems to be coming back and coming back and coming back. That's important for me to communicate, is that the seeds of comedy, the seed of comedy, is within the mask of sorrow. And tragedy, and within the mask of comedy, of humor, of funny, is the seed of tragedy. This is really easy to see if you look at our comedians, the people that make us laugh. And you look at them personally. Most of them, their personal existence is tragedy. And it's their way, perhaps, of coping with this tragedy by making us laugh, by making us see the humor, see the comedy within the tragedy. And many of them have what could be termed tragic ending. Robin Williams comes immediately to mind, although there's a history there, isn't there? I'm glad that the king of slapstick in the latest generation, well, in my latest generation, I'm out of touch, I don't know who's out there, but Jim Carrey, and it seemed to be that he went towards tragedy, but he chose the spirit. It seems that he's well entrenched in recognizing the spiritual side as essential. He's well on the path to self-discovery. Russell Brand is another one that comes to mind based on the work that he's doing now, who went from comedy, most likely experienced tragedy in his own personal existence, and chose to come out chose to have learned from this journey. So, in my experience, which is all I can really share, although I do look outside and see and try to look for patterns, not only polarities, but patterns. And as my so what came to. So what? Now I hear those words, so what, makes me laugh. Before, so what was instinctively to protect what I saw as my individual freedom. And as mentioned before, when you understand that by our very nature, we're free. Even if we're incarcerated, even if we're jailed, they can't, no matter how hard they try, they can't control our mind. They can't control our thoughts. And the humor is there that neither can the rest of us control our thoughts. I certainly worked as hard as anyone that I know to control, to make that journey from taming to quieting to still, hoping beyond hope, to end up in some silent realm where the mind no longer was a challenge to be overcome. Well, for me it was never overcome. It's a matter of embracing, taming, and an understanding that silence for me didn't have to be completely quieting, conquering the monkey mind that mostly gibberish, that's non-stop, at least in my existence. Recognizing the nature, recognizing that the noise was essentially fear-driven. The ego does not want to be recognized for what it really is. Nonsense of no sense. That's the fear of the mind chatter. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Yes, and I mentioned before and I'll mention again. I give it a task. That's part of taming the mind to me. Recognizing its usefulness, giving it a task. And while it's busy doing the task, the period before it will report to me the results of its tasks. And trust me, it's a fine tool. If you put it in the right, correct task, it'll come back like a little puppy dog carrying the ball or the bone. And there's something there of use. But the time, while it's busy doing what is task, busy looking to please you, because the mind recognizes that if it can't torture you to get your attention, if it can't make you experience fear, that there's another avenue available to them, and that's to please you. So I leave it to you to choose between these two. Torture, pleasure. Need I say, another polarity. So what becomes so what? From exclamation point to question mark. Another polarity. Yeah, I'll stop right there with polarities, okay? Not for today, but from exclamation to so what? So what now? Bring it on. Change? Yeah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yes, change is something to celebrate. As so what goes from exclamation mark, so what, transitions through the art of letting go. Letting go paves the way for surrender. Letting go becomes so what that makes you smile. And the real beauty in this so what to so what to what is so. That's where you end up. And trust me, it's a good place to be.